I hope you're having an outstanding day. Welcome back to another episode. It's the Back to Me podcast. Yay! And today I am talking to yet another awesome human being. And today, this is one of my favorite topics because I talk about it a lot. Let's just say maybe a bit of overkill. Maybe you're sick of it, but now I have someone else who's going to talk about it, so it's not all me. Today, I am talking to Theresa Yu, who is the founder and coach of Healthinology, and we're talking work-life balance, among other things. But, work, life, they're things. We've got to deal with them. So welcome, Theresa. I'm so glad you could make it and that you're here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yes, I do talk about work-life balance a lot, but I think that it's pretty prevalent in everyone's lives that they have to have jobs. For most of us have to have jobs to live. But before we start, I'm always really curious about how this came about, how you developed this idea to coach people and your business Healthinology, how that grew, where that came from.
Yeah, that's a good question, Heather. And Healthinology is just something that I coined. So I am about all things health, and I really think that the different pillars of health, physical, emotional, spiritual, nutrition, mental, they're all really linked, especially in work-life balance. So I decided to name my company Healthinology because all of the things are linked, even if it's career and health, for example, that's all still linked. Your physical health ties into your career, into your emotional health, and so on. So that's really where the name came from. And it really boils down to lots of personal experience with working in, corporate environments, working in different places too, government, nonprofits, for-profit companies, seeing how people really struggle with communication barriers, with, really just managing their life in general. They might have lots of work to do at home, but really they want to go back and see their spouse and they want to see their friends, and they complain they have no life, but then again, they don't know how to manage their productivity. All of that are all the things that I live for and all the things that I teach.
Right. And have you found it's gotten worse over the last few years with all this kind of working from home, hybrid working? Do you find people are having a harder time separating those things out?
It's interesting. I think at the very beginning of when we had our pandemic and people started normalizing remote working, it was worse. Lots of folks didn't know how to manage work and life. They didn't know that turning off their devices was boundary management, and really just cutting off that tether is so important to your work-life balance and your mental health, and just giving you more time for yourself, just giving yourself that self-care that you need. So there was a lot of boundary management there at the very beginning. Now that it's normalized, I don't typically see it as much. Lots of people have found their own routines in remote work now, which is really great. It's really awesome. Lots of people have found it to be an awesome perk to work from home, and to be able to do both simultaneously. So it is a very awesome shift, I think.
Right. I love working from home. So, right.
Likewise.
No more trying to commute or do any of those things. It's pretty awesome. But
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, I can and I guess maybe some people are better at that discipline of separating. And, I'm working now. I'm not working now. I can just remember when, if I had to do an online course, I I was better if I was in the room and engaged. So, and you had mentioned communication, um, because communication is, we think of businesses as these big block entities, and yes, they're filled with people, but we forget that it's actually just a bunch of people.
Mm,
And I have a coaching client who one of the challenges is that they are remote from the rest of the team, and the communication that happens on a casual basis isn't happening. Um,
mhm.
so, do you have strategies to help people with that kind of, keeping those communication lines working when you're not there?
Yeah, and it's an interesting concept because it's very different for each person. While that there are disciplines that we can all take on for remote work and communication, for example, sending routine emails, having regular check-ins, one-on-one check-ins, doesn't have to be with your manager, but really someone who's on the team. Those are all different strategies that we can take on as professionals to communicate with each other, be in the loop, and everyone is on the same page. At the same time, it is really hard when you don't see the other person because, for the most part, you're operating behind a screen. Sometimes, even when you're remote, people may not have their cameras on, and reading that body language is hard just through a phone call versus being on camera and then, of course, being in person. So, some of those strategies really have to come down to being really clear in your written communication and in your voice, your phone communication. So being really objective when you talk to somebody, not beating around the bush for anything. Some of us want to talk around the water cooler, and there's a time and a place for that, of course. Um, you can definitely set up meetings where you can talk water cooler talk like that. That's always advised. Um, but at the same time, in terms of getting your work done, it all has to be really clear and really objective when you're looking to kind of get that work completed and on time.
Right. And it's interesting you're talking about being clear and concise. And I know some people have a lot of words. and, and and
Mhm.
I mean, it's a personality thing where I'm the type of person who just says it, dun, 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 dun. And then
Yeah,
there's the type of people who talk and talk, and I fully own that sometimes I lose track of what they're talking about. So,
yeah,
and the communication, I mean, communication is so key for everything in life, work, home, everything. Um,
absolutely.
so you're working with individuals or with businesses? I can't remember.
I work with individuals. If, a business opportunity comes up, it would really be evaluating that contract to see if my needs can fit theirs. Most of the time, it's leadership training, going through modules, going through concepts and things like that. I like to focus on professionals, whether that's leadership or not. It could be individual contributors who are looking for a little professional and personal development. So really, all of those types of people are people that I've worked with. But I like working with individuals because, man, that is where you get the stories and the gold.
And I find working with individuals, you accelerate the impact and you can accelerate their results because
Mhm.
it's just they get that focus and that one-on-one. Although that's funny because when we were talking and you said you had a guide on how to deal with micromanagers. When your coach is working with you one-on-one, it's not micromanaging, right?
Right. Well, I mean, your coach is there to help you and, I mean, really, my approach is you give me the information and I will coach you on how to figure out the situation. Everyone is different. Everyone has different situations and unique scenarios.
So
So,
what's an
yeah.
example of something that like people would come to you with?
So in terms of dealing with your micromanaging boss, in that specific scenario, it's mostly, people don't see eye to eye with their manager. So again, it's that communication part where they expect that their manager does X when they're doing Y. Like for example, your manager approves of you to get a higher education degree, like maybe an MBA or a master's, which is great, and that could mean that they're a great manager on one regard to someone else, but for another person, it might not look the same way. Like they may not appreciate it the same way, and vice versa. So it's really all about managing expectations
Right,
as well. Again, it's that communication. Like, how are they micromanaging you? Are they looking over your assignments because they're insecure, or are they looking over it because you made a lot of mistakes in the past?
right,
Right. So there's a little bit of that disconnect as well that some people don't see, but when you have someone go over it with you, it does become a lot clearer. Really, the whole focus is that you want to control what you can control. We call it inner locus of control. So, most people just want to blame their boss or like their colleagues or whatever. And there's a time and place for that, but we teach, hey, you can only control what you can control, and this is what you can do.
right. Yeah, the corporate world, such a crazy place. It's interesting. I was just thinking about like when you are dealing with bosses who are micromanagers, maybe.
Mhm.
So you have. I'm going to let the audience know that yes, I'm going to post in the show notes. There's a download where you can grab the guide on how to deal with your micromanager. But,
Yeah.
we need a guide on how to stop being a micromanager,
Yeah.
right? And there is a trust and there is a communication. And do you find that when so you're helping people find a work-life balance somehow within what they're doing,
Yeah.
and I know we've been talking a lot about communication, but do you find there's other commonalities that people have to sort through to find a place where they're satisfied with that balance?
In the most part, yes. I think the balance is different for everyone. And what I mean by work-life balance is it's comfortable for you. And what looks like for one person doesn't look like for another. So, for example, you could work 12 hours a day. Some nurses will work 12 hours a day and they won't burn out. They'll feel rejuvenized. They'll feel like they've helped, like, 20 people out today, and that really fuels their fire. They know that that is something that they love doing and they're really fulfilled. So that's why they have that balance. And then when they go home, they reflect on how much impact that they've had to the world. Um, and, that works for them. But it doesn't work for everyone, right? So, again, going back to corporate office, you could work maybe like 7 hours a day and go to back meetings and barely have time for lunch. And that totally drains out your energy. It doesn't feed you at all, and you're not fulfilled. So if you're in that place, that is somewhere in there, something has to change, because what you're doing is not something that you're happy with. It's really important to find that fulfillment in order to kind of get the balance you're looking
So
for.
you're looking at work-life balance more as what you're doing energizes you versus drains the life out of you, and
Yeah, I absolutely. I
right?
think that's part of it. It's different for every person,
Oh,
and
yeah, I
it's
mean,
not
that's why there's
tied
so
to the
many
amount of
professions,
hours.
right? And yeah,
Yeah.
hours is not relevant. I mean, I used to work corporate, and I would work really long days, and
Mhm.
I mean, I left corporate, so obviously obviously I didn't love it. And now
Mhm.
I will work all day and into the night, and I feel fabulous because of what I do, but it is very it's a different energy behind it. And,
Yes.
um, I think about coaches who do the, "You have to work till your eyeballs bleed." I'm like, that doesn't sound like a good strategy to me." Do you know who I'm talking about?
I
He
don't,
he's a
but
pretty big name in coaching, but
okay.
yes, he's a work till your eyeballs bleed guy. I'm not doing that, and I would never encourage anyone to do that because I am a huge fan of making sure your life is in balance and you are healthy and you have that energy to bring to whatever you wanna bring it to, right? Maybe if you are living that life that you really want, your work is something that actually is part of what you wanna do with your life, like what you wanna contribute. So,
Mhm.
like, you are a coach for helping people get more balance, and I'm sure that's, like, something you love doing, right?
Yeah. Yeah, because I figured out a long time ago that helping people fuels my energy. I love doing it, and I'm a problem solver as well. Like solving a problem really is satisfying to me. Especially, like different challenges and things like that. Now, I kind of just coach people on fulfillment and, career and work life balance and health and all of that. But with that comes with another set of challenges, which is dealing with people,
Right,
right? And that to me is really, I think, really like the hardest challenges because people are hard and there's so many different ways you can go. But that's really based on my own creative genius, and I love being creative and I love doing that. So, yeah,
right.
definitely,
I
it's
was I
great.
was I can't remember if I was reading something or listening to a podcast. It was one of those, you can't be responsible for someone else's path, but you can help illuminate for them, right?
Absolutely.
And I was actually the right before this, I was the meeting I told you that I was in, he made a comment that was, "Humans won't do anything unless there's a consequence." So so, if you are unhappy, you and you want balance in your life and you want to have more joy, then how it's like comparing the consequence of doing something versus not doing something. You can
Yeah.
decide to stay there, and the consequences, you're staying in whatever the crap is that you're sitting in. If you
Yeah.
decide to change something, um, the consequence is something's going to change, and you don't know what it's going to be. But
Mhm.
heck, maybe it'll be better. Do you find that you have people who resist trying to make those changes?
100%. Yeah. People want to do what they know. And that's completely fine,
It's normal,
if that's a choice that they make. Right, and, I don't bash anyone for staying, in the whatever crap that they're doing right now. Of course, if they wanna stay there and not do anything and completely just continue to be unhappy, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. So, I say, well, what can I help you with? And
right?
then we move on from there. But really, people who seek change are very interested in doing different things. They're interested in different opportunities, even things that they've probably never ever thought of before. And part of that experience is me going to them and, even suggesting some things, sometimes they know in the back of their head what they need to do. They just don't want to do it because they're afraid of what's on the other side. Like you said, it's, you don't know what's there that, when they take that leap. And part of it is just encouraging them to just go for it and see where it takes them.
Well, and I think that's part of the I see it part of the role of coaching. I mean, I find often the person knows what they need, what maybe they don't have a strategy for it, but they often know the direction they want to go or the direction they should be going, and there is that fear of of what would happen if I change things.
Mhm.
What happens if I mix things up? And I see that coach is there just to like try to hold try to hold the boat steady while they kick out from the shore. It's like, it's okay. If you
Yeah,
fall, I've got it. It's good. We got this. We got this. I'm here for the support team. And sometimes that's the only way people can make that change, right? Is to have
right.
someone in their corner.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think we've all been there before. We've been very hesitant to make the leap. I've had plenty of mentors, coaches in my life that have encouraged me to do things I have never thought about doing. And really, it's about knowing your strengths sometimes in the career world too. It's about, hey, maybe the role that you have isn't a good fit for you right now and you're unhappy. I can see that. So, what are some other things that, you're interested in and we can do? And maybe we can help you go and look for those opportunities as well. So sometimes we'll do that too.
Right. And I know that sometimes people will start on a path to this is my career path. This is what I want. And it's not even always their path that's been chosen for them. And they get partway
Yes.
through it and they don't like it, but they feel committed. No, I have to keep going instead of just pulling the chute and changing
Right.
directions, right? It's funny. I am a leap off the ledge kind of girl. I'm a pull the band-aid
Mm.
off whoosh, and it's just like, and then I just figure out what's the consequences after. But I know that a lot of people that's not going to be them, and I would never ask someone to take the actions that I've taken because it would freak a lot of people out. But having seen that on the other side, you actually are still there. Everything is still okay. The world hasn't ended. The universe didn't collapse because you changed something.
Right.
So, um, and I feel like that's part of our role is to show them that the other side is not necessarily going to be bad. It could be worse. It's funny that we go to the I'm afraid to change, but the grass is greener on the other side.
Yeah. And it depends. It depends too for some of those people that are very hesitant to change. They don't want to rip the band-aid off. They're too scared. Again, that's their choice and I honor it. I would never tell anyone, hey, just rip the
Right.
band-aid off. Um, because it's too far in their comfort zone
Right.
to have them kind of think what would happen to them. So then we just kind of go slowly. And that's completely fine with them if that's what they want to choose as well. I do usually tell my clients though, whatever you choose on the other side, for the most part, it will be 50-50. So you could be dealing with a manager right now. You could be dealing with corporate issues right now. That is a problem, but it doesn't mean when you go to the other side where you think the grass is greener that you won't have problems there either.
Right.
So,
Everywhere you go, there's going to be people.
mhm,
Everywhere you go, there's going to be personalities.
yeah,
I've had, I, I've moved around enough and had enough roles and volunteer work and my own business that everywhere you go, there's personalities. And
yeah,
um, back to the beginning, the communication really is what's going to help you in the end.
Yes.
And just knowing that everyone is, if you can get to a place where I feel like whether you have your own business or you're doing volunteer work or you're in a job, that if you're in a place where there's a vision bigger than just I'm going to work, I'm pushing paper. So like the vision of the company or the vision of the
Right.
department or the vision of the manager. And if all of the people involved can be in with that same vision and it's something that everybody is on board with, right? If you don't believe in the vision of your company, you're not going to be happy and
Yeah.
you're not going to interact well and it's going to be a crappy experience. But if you can find a place that you like working and you like the people, then that's going to help. But it's true, everywhere you go, if you change positions, if you change jobs, if you change careers, you're still going to have people, right?
Yep. Absolutely. 100% agree. Learning how to communicate with different communication styles is definitely key. Learning how to, someone's body language, learning their tone, and what that signifies is really key. And it's all about just building relationships
Do you have
with people.
strategies for that? Because so much is on Zoom now. Like are you working remotely or live?
Remote.
Right. So Zoom calls, you see, depends on where the person sits, so much of a person. And body
Right.
language, I found when COVID first came, part of my frustration, which I didn't realize right away, was masks. And it wasn't because
Mm,
I didn't think they worked and I wanted to get sick. It was because I felt like I couldn't see part of the communication that I needed to see.
mm.
And and then Zoom came. At least we had the masks off, but you can only see so much of someone, and that body language is very interesting. So, do you help your clients with strategies for figuring out how to tell what's going on with someone if they have their camera on? I guess.
Yeah, for remote work, it is tricky, and it's so working remotely and on Zoom are kind of separate things with the work-life balance, but I do offer it as kind of like on the side or a bonus if anyone was interested in learning more about that. And what I typically teach is you want to first know the topic that, so again, the objective piece. You want to have an agenda, you want to know what you're going to talk about, and you want to stay on that agenda, right? Like no one wants like an hour long meeting where you talk about nothing and nothing gets accomplished.
Been there,
Like
done
that
that.
that that's gonna piss a few people off, whether you're on Zoom camera or not. And you could definitely, see people kind of like shifting in their chairs, like their eyes kind of like glaze over, or like,
You can tell they're
or
reading emails.
yeah, right. Or you can kind of see that they may not be paying attention, especially if it's a really large meeting with a lot of people, right? So for those smaller kind of touch base meetings where you have your camera on, most people are engaged. Of course, you want to communicate general meeting guidelines and agendas. So there's meeting rules that people usually establish at the very beginning. So that's things like, hey, like no texting or calling during a meeting like this. Not checking your emails. Having something that you want to contribute to the group sometimes is encouraged as well. So you want to have those meeting rules ahead of time, as well as meeting notes. So those are all things that you could do objectively. Now, the soft skill side, you could, if it's on camera, of course. If it's a phone call, that's different. But if it's on camera, generally you want to just kind of pay attention to each person on the call and get them involved. If you see someone's eyes glaze over and there's, I think there's a view on like Zoom or Teams or whatever where you can see everybody at the same time with like little small rectangular squares. You know, we all try our best, but if you see someone kind of glaze over, get them involved with the meeting, like ask open-ended questions. That's part of being a really great facilitator,
Right.
um, which is a skill in itself. But you know, it's just little things like that. If people have to have bathroom, if it's a long hour long meeting, have bathroom breaks. Do something like polls, quizzes, or fun. Generally for calls like that,
Right.
anything that's interactive really all helps get the mood going. And that's all about the relationship building part as well. So um, while you can sit in a meeting and be unproductive and talk about nothing, you could definitely integrate some of those strategies to make people more engaged so they're not kind of like, you know, just glazing over and
Right.
doing something else.
I actually am connected with a woman on LinkedIn who brings things like games into teams to help them uh,
Yeah.
become more cohesive as a group. And I think that's an awesome strategy.
Hmm.
And I had a quick thought that I just had a flashback to a meeting a live meeting I was at in corporate. And it is hard to keep people engaged sometimes if, it's a very dry subject. And I can just remember, and don't do this to your staff, at one point, I was just not there. And
Hmm.
my boss saw it and asked me a question to make a point that I wasn't paying attention. I was like,
Ah,
don't call someone out. Just,
no,
it's like I had to go, I wasn't listening. Could you repeat that?
right.
Now he
Yeah.
was my micromanager, so
Yeah, no, we don't ever suggest calling anyone out. You know, and I think a little bit of empathy goes a long way. You know, a lot of people don't prefer being on video camera. It's not comfortable for a lot of folks. Some people are just not like camera focused. Like, you know,
right,
like some of us just was not born with the camera like in front of your face,
right.
right? So it takes a little bit of practice there for some people. And you know, some other folks may have other things going on in their life where they could be extra tired, and you know, and you could like see someone like sleeping and like trying to wake up, or like someone with their coffee, you know, or you know, those are all cues that you could pick up where they may not be the candidate to kind of call on. There's also time zones. Okay,
Oh yeah,
like I know that we haven't touched on that, but there's also different time zones where you have to be mindful of people's schedules. I'm, you know, on West Coast, so Pacific, and there's some people who may be on Eastern. There's some that may be international, right? That you kind of have to factor in
yeah,
as well.
yeah.
So
I had a client in Australia for a while. That was
yeah.
challenging. And
Hmm.
now Pakistan, I'm like, what time zone is it?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like, but I mean, it's all, so we are talking very corporate, but it all just also relates to just life, right?
Mhm.
Um, like I belong to clubs that haven't been meeting in live for a while, and uh, they're Zoom meetings, and you can have 60 people in a room, and how do you keep 60 people engaged in a meeting that could have dry spots in it? So,
Yeah.
but they're all like such good strategies. So thank you so much for that. I've been
You're
writing
welcome.
notes while we've been talking. I don't know if you noticed.
Oh no, right away. I mean, I rewatched this on YouTube or whatever. Yeah, feel free to take whatever you can take.
Yeah, and I am going to include how people can connect with you in the show notes and make sure
Okay.
that they can reach out to you and grab the guide on how to deal with micromanagers, and invite people to connect with you and follow you. And before we go, though, I would love if you could give a final word of wisdom.
Sure. I think the main issue that most people have when they come to me is that they want to be fulfilled in their job and their life, and they want everything balanced right away, which is a very ambitious goal. Not to say, not to poo-poo on that either. I'm very ambitious. I totally wanted that early on in my career, but what most people find when they kind of go on this journey of self-discovery and career development and personal development is that balance is one thing, but you have to know your priorities too. So most people come to me for any sort of career advice, but you also have to keep in mind of your priorities. And while with a little bit of digging, most people just want to be with their family.
Right.
So I would say know your priorities first, start from there, and then make decisions after, would be my strategy, because people want more money, they want a higher position in their career. That's what a lot of people want. They want balance, of course, but really your priority is being with your family. So make sure that your life revolves around that.
Right.
So that would be my advice.
That's perfect. I love it. That's what I tell people to do. So,
Good, good.
yahoo, we're on the same page. Yay.
Yeah,
Thank you so much, Theresa. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing all of your awesome wisdom and knowledge. I totally appreciate
you're
you
welcome.
joining us. Thank you. And my friends out in podcast land, if you're struggling, you know what to do. Reach out and get some help, because Theresa, all the coaches, they just want to help you, right? We just want to help you guys have an awesome life. So click like, quick subscribe, share with your friends, and of course, connect with Theresa. And we will see you next time, my friend.